Hello everyone, I'm Rich Lamont. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. So today we are going to be doing a pattern from Price Tannet's How to Dress Salmon Flies. We're going to do the Sherbrooke. This fly has a lot of components in the wing, which I've already taken out here. If you have a chance to find this book and pick it up, I highly recommend it. So originally this book came out in 1914, at least part one did. The rest was kind of compiled, and then this book itself, I think, was from 1977. But you know, all of Price Tannet's information is in here. So what we're doing is the Sherbrooke. Now this takes a hook according to the book, it says a hook 1 to 1.25 inches. That puts it around like a 2, maybe a 1/0. I'm going to do this in a size 4/0. So I'm going to do it a bit larger. This is it's almost a 2-inch hook. So about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch longer than is normally called for in the book. So this was actually requested by a subscriber, Carl Seaforth. And he also had donated the Floric and Buster to the channel as well, so thank him for that. And we'll do this this wonderful pattern for him. So now in this, the wing, it says mixed, tippet strands, married strands of yellow, white, orange, crimson, and blue swan. Now obviously I'm using turkey instead of swan. Golden pheasant tail, florican, and peacock wing. So that's a lot of material to marry into a wing. So we'll be doing just a couple of slips of each one. There's not really any reason to make this, you know, a giant wing, especially on a hook this size. I think maybe 2 of each color throughout is really going to fill up what we need for this hook. So, go ahead and we'll start separating this out, and we'll get this married together. The florican I don't need to be this long, so I'm just going to take from a little bit farther up where it gets a bit shorter. You can see here there's already some broken pieces anyhow, so you can get those out of there while you're at it. Come on. I want to try to keep them all about the same length, so just makes it easier if they're all the same length, that you can marry them a little bit better. Now feathers like this, it's almost pretty even on both sides. So if you can find 2 lengths that are similar, you can actually use from both sides rather than just the one. I actually like the other feather for it better. Same thing with these yellows. These are nice and long. But I'm actually going to take from the shorter side and save the longer stuff. This will be playing long anyhow. Same thing with this blue. I'm actually going to take this on the shorter side of the feather and save the longer stuff for other flies. Oh, there's two already cut, just kind of hanging out. Alright, now it's kind of up to the tier's discretion as to how these are in order when you tie them in. I like to have the darker material on top, lighter stuff towards the bottom. I had a lot of people ask me, how do you know what order to put them in? Is there a specific order? Really, there's not. That's kind of all up to the tier's discretion, as long as you kind of follow the colors of the pattern itself. So I'm just going to grab these and just marry them together and see how it looks. And all the while, as I'm marrying them up, I'm making sure that I'm creating a gradual angle at the tips. And that will later serve mounting onto the fly itself. Do some peacock. I might actually need to do a bit more material for this. I thought 2 of each would have been enough, but that's a very small wing. Of course, I could take this and just downsize the hook for you guys, and tying this on the proper size hook, like a 2. Let's see. This here is a 2.0, and that wing is still a little small for it. So yeah, this wing here would be good for probably a size 2. So for reference, if you want to do a size 2, 2 slips of each. I'm actually going to go and I'm going to redo this. I'm going to pull out some more slips. I'm probably going to double it and do 4 of each. I will be back with you guys in just a little bit. I won't make you sit through it. Alright, so you can see I doubled the recipe and the wing came out much better. I'm actually marrying the other side, and I actually wanted to talk to you about something else while I do this. So that way you guys can kind of watch me still marry these things. When you're marrying feathers, if you really want to understand how feathers work and how marrying works, get yourself a magnifying glass, take some time, and take some feathers and actually play with them. Look at them under the magnifying glass and move them around. Look at the different fibers that are along the quill or the stem here. If you look at how those little fibers interact with one another, and then you'll see how one side is kind of fuzzier than the other side. They actually, if you're under a magnifying glass, they almost make a T, and there's like a flat spot, and that flat spot is actually the fuzzier, more quote-unquote Velcro part. So that's why you always want to Velcro with the flatter, duller side to the outside and the shinier side to the inside. That shinier part to the inside doesn't marry, it's the outer part that does. But if you ever want to understand, a little bit more about how things work, just take the time to sit down with some feathers or some furs. Don't even have to have a hook in front of you. Just take the materials themselves and fiddle with them. See what you can do with them. See how you can make them move. You'd be surprised at what you can do with feathers and how you can get them to move and which ones you can get to marry, and play with golden pheasant tail and see how different it is. See how much it really doesn't have that Velcro like turkey has, or like a florican or bustard. Florican and bustard, they marry very, very well. All the bustards do, really. if you ever want to see how they interact, you know, just take a couple of pieces of them and fiddle with them. Yeah, it's a little bit of waste. There might be a little bit of loss, but is it? You know, if you're learning something out of it. Oh, I missed a slip of red. I get distracted talking. If you're learning something out of it, you know, if it gains you something, is it really a loss? Yeah, you might be sacrificing a little bit of material, but I think it's all worth it in the end, really. There's so much that we can learn and so many things that we don't realize as we're going along and doing things. And some of it's right underneath our noses. You know, just not that long ago, I found out something about myself. I was always lining up the butt on a salmon fly and telling all of you to line up the butt of the salmon fly with the tip of the hook. Well, that's where the butt should end. So you're starting the butt behind the hook point, not at the hook point. I never knew that. That's something I found out just recently. And it's something simple, and it was right in front of me the whole time, and you know, all these years I just for whatever reason was always lining them up that way. And that changes the look of a fly. But that's not really playing with materials per se, but I'm just saying that we're always learning something new. My hands are already starting to get a little sweaty. This is another one that you kind of want to have clean hands for. So if you start to sweat a little bit and you feel like your fingertips are getting too moist, that can affect the tips in the feathers. Those oils from your hands can actually get onto those little smaller Velcro pieces, and that can actually affect how it winds up marrying. Those Velcro pieces become saturated and then they become wet and they no longer stick together, or they'll clump up, which will then give you very pointed, wispy looking tips. And we all know that that's kind of annoying, and we try to avoid that. Sometimes I'll get up and have to wash my hands 2 or 3 times while I'm marrying a set of wings. A pheasant tail on top. I need 2 more pieces of that. As you can see now, what I'm doing is I'm just aligning all of these and kind of shuffling them a little bit by tugging on the top, the middle, or the bottom and holding other parts of it. So if I hold the middle still and tug on the bottom, I can kind of square that off, or prevent it from being squared off rather, and change that. I want to bring this tip in a little bit more, hold the rest of it. Just pull back on the top a little bit. And you can get those tips to line up nice. And here's the wing for our Sherbrooke fly. And we'll take this over to the vise and put the fly together and get this on there. See you in a minute. Okay, we're over here at the vise. Now we're starting with the bare hook, and yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of an underbody on it, but we're starting with the bare hook for a reason. With this fly, because it's a complete floss body, and the body has a there's two segments, so it's going to be orange floss and then blue floss, but there's no butt in between. So I'm going to show you how to do that as well, and have a nice smooth body all the way across. But to do that, you have to have a really nice underbody, and your underbody will, or excuse me, the eye that you choose will play into that underbody. So you can either use real silk gut, or you can use monofilament. But monofilament, if you look, see how the gut looks like a rope. It's twisted up. Well, when you twist it, you're going to have that effect, and that's going to carry down through the body, and that's rather difficult to get rid of. So what I'm using, since this is a display fly, this will not be fished. Let me get a little closer for you. This fly will not be fished, so I'm not concerned with the strength of the eye, so I'm using horsehair. This is actually from my sister's horse. So if you've got anybody in your family that's got a horse that has, white or light colored tails, it took a set 3 strands that were about 23 inches long to make this section here. So this is 3 strands of hair twisted up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it secure up here at the tip. And then once we know that this is secure here, we're going to come back here and we're going to snip it off almost to the hook point. And we're going to let it unwind. If you let it unwind, when you go to wrap the rest of the body, this will lay smooth against the hook shank and you won't have these waves. Just loosen them up a little bit more. All right, once you've got those loosened up, now take your scissors and, starting at about the midpoint, cut a very gradual slant toward your butt. And that gradual taper out as well is going to help with your transition of your body. This can work as well with silk gut. You want to make sure that it is looped up here and secure. That way when you unravel it farther up, those silk gut softens enough that if you soak it properly before you wrap it on, that would soften enough that it'll actually hold to the hook, and you'll still get a nice round shape. You won't actually have to worry about the any kind of ridges or anything from it. But with monofilament gut subs, that's definitely a concern that you need to watch out for. And now, as you can see here, we have a nice, relatively uniform body all throughout, and we haven't even laid an underbody yet. Alright, now I'm using horsehair, so I'm going to use a little Sally Hansen's just right here in the front part. Not necessary, but it makes me feel better. Alright, I'll let that firm up. So that's set up for a little bit. Just want to compare the wing. You know, a lot of this will press down, but I think this is going to be rather kind of on the top heavy side. I still think it'll look good. I think it'll look alright. Alright, so the tag on this, it's actually small silver thread. I don't have silver thread, so it'll have to be extra fine silver tinsel. I'm going to take that back to about here, which I'm not sure if this can be seen. Right in here, where the hook valley is, on the barb right there. I'm going to go just in front of that. And then we'll come back up. I think this is only going to be maybe 3 turns of it. 3 turns of this tinsel here. And then we're going to ride that along the tinsel back up towards where the butt is going to be. And by riding that along that other strand of tinsel, which is really just the butt of that, we're basically eliminating any sort of lump or rise right here. Alright, now I'm just going to do a small underbody, thin layer. And all I'm doing here is just smoothing out the body a bit, getting it ready for the floss. here. And again, I'm just going to put a drop of Sally Hansen's right here. That's just right where I made that finish, just to make sure that that underbody doesn't come loose on us. Alright, so the tag on this is pale yellow silk. So I'll take that up to about there. There is no butt on this fly. There's no butt, so we need to make sure our transitions are smooth and even throughout the fly between the three sections of floss. Alright, so this first is the pale yellow silk. And for this one I am using Japanese embroidery silk. So it's quite thin and delicate. It's a shorter section. I'm hoping I can get away with it without having to put my gloves on, but I will be putting them on for the forward sections. So I'll just take this and slowly wrap it backwards. Now what I did was doubled it around the thread. That just gives me a little bit more surface area, a little more coverage. And we're up back to the tinsel. And then work our way back forward. Now since we have another section of silk that's going to be ahead of this, what we want to do is kind of go into that section a little bit more with this. And I'll show you why here in just a moment. I like to do that with even going into a dubbed body section. Kind of wrap your floss into the next section a little bit and then go back over it. Then we'll come back to here, tie in our tail, and what we've essentially done here is just made a much smoother, easier transition. And now when we wrap our next body segment, when we come back, we'll come back a little bit over this. And that's how we'll blend the two. Let's see. Smooth that out a little. Now for the tail. Chosen a nice curved golden pheasant tippet. The thing about that right there is good. Typically they say 1.5 times the hook gap. Of course I'm just eyeballing it for what kind of looks good to me, but 1.5 times the hook gap is kind of a general rule of thumb for the length of your tail. So now what I'll do is from here, there it goes, and then I'm going to just start to pump the camera. One of these days I'll get the hang of that. And then I'm just going to cut away all of these extra pieces here. I may need to trim again in just a moment, but trimming away some of that will allow you to tie in. Yeah, I gotta come back a little more. That'll help your thread grab on to something. Otherwise you wind up with your tail kind of rolling around, and it does one of these jobs when it's on the hook. Alright, now... Alright, I had a little mishap. I had to take a few steps back here, but we're back at the tail. Alright, so we've got the tail on. For the tail veiling is an Indian crow feather. Now I'm going to use an Indian crow sub. This is actually one that was dyed by a subscriber and a friend, David Kerr in Ireland. Thanks, David. These are awesome. So we're going to use one of these today. This one looked like it would fit real good. So I'll strip away most of this dark stuff here. Actually, I think for this fly it's all going to go. And then we're just going to kink right here, right about where the tie-in point's going to be, just so it pops up a little bit off the fly, but doesn't create an issue with the tail. And for that I'm going to use a little wax. You'll notice I'm not using a whole lot of wax on this fly. Wax does bad things to silk, and a lot of times the wax will show through the silk, so I try not to... Oh man, I try not to use too much wax with silk. Keep whacking that camera today. This little piece of the tail we can get later on. For now, let's get the tail together. don't forget, you got to have other silk come up to this point. And you want to make sure you don't make it too thick. Got that tight spot. And this stem we're going to carry all the way up the body. And then we'll come back. And for the tinsel, I'm going to be using Vivis medium oval silver tinsel. For this, what we'll do is we'll take the sheathing on it and we're going to strip it off. This metal sheathing surrounds a silk core, and that silk core is much easier to tie in and will create a much thinner tie-in point. So we'll get all of this sheathing off of here, just where we're tying in, and then we'll clip away that, you know, if it's this outer sheathing here getting in your way, clip that out. Again, use junk scissors for this. And then we're going to tie that in at around the 430 position on the other side of the hook. And then we'll take that, wrap that forward to about the third way point up the hook, and that's where we're going to start the next body segment. Take care of a little bit of housekeeping here. And flatten all these down. Use your thumbnail, or if you got a burnisher. Some guys use their scissors. And smooth all of this out, especially the tie-in point here, or the joint point where the two flosses are going to meet. Alright, so this next floss here is, next body segment is the pale orange floss. I'll get this tinsel out of the way. And I just want to get my gloves on. Now, I have an unruly finger. Here we go. Alright, so this is the pale orange floss that I'm using. Japanese embroidery silk. Alright, now when you put this on here, you want to make sure that it's about even halfway, 50-50 length. And what we're going to do is split it, wrap it around the thread, and basically we're doubling it to give us a little bit more surface area as we wrap. And you want to go through and smooth out any fibers that might be out of place, anything that's a little bit loose. And then we'll just wrap nice and flat and even all the way back to the yellow. And then when we get to the yellow, we'll make that turn. When you come forward, you'll see there's a little bit of a lump there. We can go back and take care of that in just a moment. I'm going to follow this all the way back forward, and as you wrap, just fill in any of the high and low spots. You can overlap your thread again, you can double wrap it and go back and do another layer if you need to, but from here this should be all you need. And now right where the blue is going to be, we're going to kind of wrap into that a little bit. So we'll go past this point, and then we'll just wrap like one, maybe two more times. There's going to be some burnish work here, burnishing back here and burnishing in this orange. But I want to get the blue silk done while I've got my gloves on. My gloves. So we're going to wrap forward. Now there's no hackle until we get to the throat, so I'm not worried about any of that. So now from here, we're going to be using pale blue silk. And again, we'll use the same method of doubling it around the thread. Not very even. Bear with me. That's even. going to have to take this rather slow, so bear with me here. There's a longer section of silk and I don't have a whole lot of room in front of me. It might be time to upgrade the tying desk. As much as I love my roll top, it just doesn't seem to be adequate anymore. At least not for what I do. Okay, so now we're approaching the orange. So what we're going to do now is just wrap over that a little bit. Right there like that. And then work our way back forward. And just that little bit. Is what you need to do. Just encroach on, bring the orange forward a little bit and then bring the blue back over it. Now if this was a fishing fly, you know, the silk being perfectly smooth and the transition being absolutely perfect would be not necessary. But that's not really what I'm tying. Not really what I tie on this channel very often. While I do enjoy tying fishing flies for you guys, flies that can be used, you know, I tend to tie for the wall and for the beauty of it. And of course I do these a little bit larger for all of you, so that way you guys can see a little bit better what it is that I'm doing and really enjoy the beauty of these salmon flies. Now I'm bringing this as far forward as I can. I will have hackle up here. But I've found that lately I've wanted to, for whatever reason, end farther back. So I'm going to bring it a little more forward. Alright, remove the gloves. Let's just secure that a little bit better. Now we'll go back to the transition points with the burnisher. Burnisher, you can use your thumbnail. Spots like this where there might be a little bit of an extra lump, you can just use your thumbnail and very gently press on it. Rather than dragging your nail over it. By doing this, you're more compressing what's underneath it as well. And then you can burnish over it. And then burnishing will just help settle all those fibers into place. Kind of settle, get all those fibers all nice and happy and together. And push the higher spots into the low spots, and broken thread up here, or pieces of silk, so we'll just pull that out. No, it's not the most beautiful transition that I've done, but not terribly awful. Hopefully you guys can see that. Now we'll bring the tinsel around. Or 5, and then we'll tie off at the bottom where number 6 would start. We're actually going to come back a little bit more to start the hackle. The hackle I'm using is just a saddle hackle. It's pale blue. This is the palest blue I've got, and this is probably the only feather I have that might suit this fly, so hopefully this feather is enough. So we'll go ahead and we'll strip away the fluff, and the rest of this up here, we're going to open those up. And I'm going to start wrapping right around here where it starts getting a little bit longer. So we'll just strip away those portions of the hackle. Tie this in here. I'm going to imagine between 3 and 5 wraps would be about what I want for this. And palmer it back as we wrap. Back you guys up a bit. Keep whacking this camera. Four inches between the camera and the fly is not a whole lot of room. Alright, that's good. Tie that off. And we're going to pull most of this down, but I'm not going to pull it down like it's all being pulled directly down. I'm going to think I'll be able to leave it about like that. Now, though it calls for tippet strands, I am going to use 2 whole feathers back to back. Position for that. Sit you guys up a little higher. Now you can see the way the hackle is lined up. After the hackle is wrapped, it lines up about with the length of the body. The hackle's about 2/3 the length of the body. And that gives you a nice full throat It's not too long, it's not too short. Maybe a little bit on the full side. But now what we're going to do is back wrap onto the hackle a little bit. So you're going to be right inside the hackle stem on that last wrap. That'll help keep your hackle down a little, but that's going to help us mount our wing, and this will serve as kind of a platform for the underwing and the wing, and that'll also keep us from getting too close to the end of the hook. So that'll be the end of video 1. We will do the top half on video 2. In the top half we will mount the underwing, the wing, the sides, and the toppings. So if you like this video, you found it informative, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, think about subscribing. I am going to have new stuff. This week I'm actually going to have several videos out. I have a video coming out on some different kinds of waxes, cobbler's wax, blonde wax, and then a couple different makers of the wax as well. I'm also going to be covering a little bit more on sides and roofs. This video is going to feature that a bit. We will be using that for that, but those will be out later on. So keep an eye out for that. Keep post notifications on. And as always, tight lines everyone. Have yourselves a great day. I'll see you in the next video.